One of the strange things about the novel is that for the longest time, it's been thought of as dangerous. It's a very odd thing, really, that writers have no armies. You know, they have no weapons other than their words, and yet very often tyrants, authoritarian rulers, any form of illiberal entity sees writers as the enemy. Journalists as well as creative writers. In fact, there's probably never been a time when journalists were in as much danger as they are today, when they're treated increasingly as combatants rather than impartial observers and as legitimate targets. Makes it all the more impressive that they go on doing their job. But it's a question of why is it? Why is it that this curious small-scale act, the writing of a book, is so often perceived by powerful people who do have armies and guns and secret policemen and torture chambers and so on, as being dangerous to them? And I think one of the reasons for fearing the novel is that nobody owns it. It doesn't belong to any interest group. It doesn't speak on behalf of anyone. It's just a single voice saying whatever it damn well pleases. And there are unfortunately a lot of people who find that kind of liberty alarming and want to silence it. The desire for story, the desire of understanding the world through story, is absolutely central to our nature as human beings. And at any attempts to limit that, to limit what stories are proper to tell, even to limit what manner stories can be told in, how shall the story be told, who has power over the story. These are the important questions, because any attempt to narrow that frame is not just, it is censorship. Yes, that's the word usually used about it, but it seems to me that it's something more than censorship. It's a kind of existential crime. It's an attack on human nature itself, because it is in our nature to tell those stories as we choose. And I think that's a thing I've always found very important to remember. Particularly in this time, because stories have to reflect the reality outside the story. And that reality has changed quite dramatically in our time. It used to be the case that the space between private life and public affairs was very great. And that space has been diminishing. But there's a problem here, I think, for the novel, which is a problem which is to do with the root of the novel, which you could say was expressed by Heraclitus thousands of years ago, when he wrote that a man's character is his fate. Character is destiny. The kind of human being you are determines the kind of life you will live. And the entire novel, the entire art of the novel flows from that idea. But what happens when character is not necessarily destiny? What happens when a couple of planes fly into tall buildings and thousands of people die for reasons unconnected to their character? What happens when bombs explode and people die for reasons unconnected to their character? It's a problem for the novel because, as I say, the relationship between character and fate is at the root of the story. The eruption of chance into life has been one of the great themes of world literature, the random, and of course, war is not new, and nor is calamity. But it seems as if now the public sphere intrudes so much more on our private lives than it ever did, that it is so much more frequently the case that the kinds of lives we have are shaped from outside our lives rather than from inside.